The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Yo, what is going on this week? Everything we're saying on this program is being said or happening to other people around the world with the Canucks, to Shannon Sharpe. And now Patrik Allvin is also saying that Brock Boeser could score 50 goals and they got to make a decision by the deadline. Am I reading it? What am I reading, bro?
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks, the home of believing in Brock Boeser. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks and also a Canucks Raider, currently with a Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into all things Boeser, Pettersson, Allvin, and Alex Edler, we got to thank you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. You know why? Because it is your Canucks every damn day. We're part of that Locked On Podcast Network. They do the most for sports fans across the world. And for our show, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go subscribe and like this video on YouTube, and on the podcast side, go follow us and leave a 5-star review. Because, hey, we ain't here without you, but we also ain't here without the sponsors. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Go download that Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Patrik Allvin with some interesting comments ahead of the season. More comments likely to come as he's got media availability later tonight. But specifically what we wanted to get into today were his comments about Elias Pettersson and Brock Boeser, two guys who are integral to the success of the Vancouver Canucks next season. What did he say about them? What are the ceilings and the floors for both players? We'll get into that, as well as some of Allvin's other comments, and talk about the greatest Canucks defenseman ever. What? All that and more coming up after I introduce my co-host, Kyle Bhawan from Maple Ridge today. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man, one love to the parents, having their own studio. I don't know if you know, my mom and dad have their own podcast about being an arranged married couple for over 30 years. My dad knew each other for 6 minutes before they had kids. It's crazy, man, the power of Hindus. Anyways, Kyle Bhawan, Trevor Beggs, doing our thing, man. And talking about Allvin and these quotes, okay? Talking to Ian McIntyre, talking to Thomas Drance. Hopefully we don't leak all the info so y'all can read those articles. Maybe we'll put those links in the link in the bio after this episode. A bit chaotic start. A bit of a chaotic start in the morning here. But we'll get those down there, okay? And I'm fascinated, man. Because Allvin, man, I don't know if this guy is David Goggins or Patrik Allvin. This guy is a highly motivated individual. And I'm sorry, Ian McIntyre, but I got to bring this up before we talk about those two players that, we brought up off the top. But during the round one performance against the Nashville Predators on the road in Nashville, the boys at the top, the brass of the Vancouver Canucks, they're having drinks. They're having dinner. I don't know if drinks were involved. Maybe they're just drinking water. But they were talking about training camp. They were talking about training camp in April and how they can improve come September. You know what I'm saying? That's who's building this organization. Championship pedigree. Every minute matters. And it also matters to get a lot better. Straight up. Speaking of which, Pettersson has to be a lot better, and Brock Boeser, Trevor Beggs, has to be a lot better as well.
Yeah, you think about the championship mentality in this organization, it just makes me think of Jim Benning back in 2020 where, we kind of ran out of time with Toffoli, Markstrom, Tanev, etc. But I digress. And Patrik Allvin said it in one of his interviews. And again, he's had one with Ian McIntyre, one with Thomas Drance as well from Sportsnet and The Athletic, respectively. And he talked about how the Canucks have to be ready from day one of the season, which starts again tomorrow. Training camp kicks off in Penticton. And it's funny because they weren't talking about it back in April. And, a lot of Canucks had a good training camp last year. It was certainly much better. The organization felt it was better under Tucker than it was under Boudreau, and the results matched that on the ice. But, two guys, the stars are always under the microscope, but I think two guys who are specifically going to be under the microscope are Elias Pettersson and Brock Boeser. And let's touch on Brock Boeser first, because this quote came from the article with Thomas Drance that he did when Drance kind of asked about, the contract talks with Brock Boeser going forward. Ooh. And, Patrik Allvin talked about how he has a good relationship with Brock and his agent, Ben Hankinson, and that when the time is right, they'll talk. told Ian McIntyre that they have to make a decision before the trade deadline as to what they're going to do with Boeser. But the most interesting quote to me was Allvin said, quote, "I told Brock that he could have scored 50 goals, but I felt he took his foot off the gas when he scored 30, and we want to see him pushing through." Pretty interesting quote, because again, this is a guy who not only hit 30 goals for the first time in his career, but also hit 40 goals for the first time in his career. And as again, Kyle, this is the championship mentality of your Vancouver Canucks. And I'm gonna tell you right now, Patrik Allvin's not wrong. I looked at the numbers and I was trying to think of where he was when he hit 30 goals. Brock Boeser scored his 30th goal of the season in that crazy comeback win over the Columbus Blue Jackets back in January. At that point, he had 30 goals in 49 games. That was exactly a 50-goal pace. But Brock Boeser and the rest of the Canucks, the offense started to falter in the second half, and he had 10 goals over his final 33 games, I believe it was. So Patrik Allvin's right. Brock Boeser could have hit 50, and I think, he's going to need some sort of puck luck to go right. But I've been saying this since the summer. I think there's a good chance that Brock Boeser can push 50 goals this season.
Yeah, you know how Barry Bonds used steroids to get to like 8,000 home runs? Brock Boeser is using UFA status to get there. And motivation coming from the top. Brock Boeser speaking from within, right? Gets in front of the microphones as soon as this season starts at the Jake Milford last week or whatnot. And, he admittedly says that he's got to prove some people wrong. For real. Because he's coming off a couple injuries. He's got to also prove that the 40-goal thing wasn't a fluke. And you take in account all those things I just said, and you have the recipe for a player that could have another career year. Because I think the rhetoric around the Canucks last year was, the shooting percentages, and they did so well because everyone had career years. Well, dude, this organization who's talking about training camp in April while they're in the middle of a playoff series, bro, they're not going to take the foot off the pedal anymore. It's over. Like, we're going to get better. I totally believe it. Rick Tocchet, Adam Foote, Sergei Gonchar, Stanley Cup pedigree on the ice with these guys every day. Don't worry, more career years coming. And Brock Boeser scoring 50. He's playing with JT Miller too. And straight up, you don't think he's reading these quotes like, look at this, okay? Again, it's hard. I don't think Patrik Allvin is dumb enough to just put this smoke out there when it comes to possibly trading Brock if there's no contract, right? Like you read these articles and I'm like, did he really say it like this? But Ian McIntyre asked Patrik Allvin if they have to make a decision right before the deadline. And the answer right on the article, it just says, Allvin says, yeah. Straight up, yeah. All I'm saying, though, is if Brock Boeser's reading that, he's like, whoa. Yeah? Trevor Beggs last week talking about Brock Boeser being the best rental the Vancouver Canucks can acquire at the deadline this season. And Patrik Allvin's like, we got to make our decision by the deadline. Yeah, we do. Again, take into account all those things I just rambled on about with Brock Boeser. And I just feel like, again, he's going to be the most motivated player in the NHL this season.
Yeah, and I think, again, Brock Boeser's comments, like you alluded to, Kyle, saying that he has something to prove because of the blood clots, even though he's coming off a career season. Look, I think this organization is very smart in the way they motivate players, right? Like maybe Brock Boeser's reading that, maybe he isn't, but I'm sure it gets back to him some way or another. But I also think Allvin knows in terms of the media, you can't make a final decision either way and say, oh no, we're absolutely not making decisions by the trade deadline or be wishy-washy. Like fans in this market are smart. And I think Patrik Allvin understands that. So I think there's a motivational aspect and a PR aspect as well with Allvin's comments there. But to your point, I think Brock Boeser, I'd be shocked if he goes anywhere at the trade deadline, right? Maybe he doesn't hit 50 goals, but it's hard to see him taking a major step back unless his health is still bothering him. But again, we see some stars come back from blood clot issues and be as good, if not better, than they were before. Dude, and Brock Boeser's in a damn good situation with the Vancouver Canucks right now.
A really damn good situation. And this whole thing about Allvin thinking that he could have got 50 last year, bro. You take into account what he did in the playoffs, and he almost got there. And we all talk about Brock Boeser not playing Game 7 because of the blood clot issue in round 2. But Brock Boeser played a lot of playoff games, and I'm pretty sure he scored two or three goals while having a broken finger.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like this guy's a G, and this guy scored a ton of goals. And for the 4th or 5th or 7th time on this episode, I'm telling you people. Close your eyes. Believe this, baby. Brock Besser's about to score 50. He's going to have a career year. And your Canucks, as Allvin alluded to, because of it, because of all these good things happening, could be in contention for the Stanley Cup. This team's focused on getting better every day. And again, these career years that we just glorified over the summer and kind of drew some skepticism towards, bro, those career years were the first of many career years for these members of the Vancouver Canucks. Again, the pedigree at the top and the leadership that they have within that organization tells me that they can align themselves with the star power on the ice and do some magnificent things. For real.
Yeah, Brock Besser, big things ahead. I agree with you. It's the 50-goal season for Brock, baby. Let's go. The bar has been raised for Brock Besser, and the bar is very high for Elias Pettersson as well. But Patrik Allvin, obviously wanting more from Pettersson. What's the ceiling? What's the floor? What did Patrik Allvin say? Find out on the other side when we come back here on Locked On Canucks after shouting at our friends over at Game Time. You know the deal, baby. If you're buying tickets for Canucks, hey, you can get those tickets right now. Maybe some Seattle Seahawks. Maybe you want to travel to Green Bay, watch Malik Willis or Jordan Love. Make sure you do it all on Game Time, okay? Because there's no other place you should be buying tickets. Game Time, they strip the fees out for you, so there's no hidden fees, no surprises. They also got the lowest price guarantee, baby, so you know you're getting the best deal on Game Time. And if that wasn't good enough, Game Time is also stepping up their game, no pun intended, with the new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets even easier for your favorite live events. Game Time Picks, they filter out the fluff and show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And I've tried it myself. You go check out a Canucks game on there, you'll see, I think there's like a little green icon or something like that, and it'll show you the best deals in the arena. So what are you waiting for, man? Go buy some tickets on Game Time right now. Go download that Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
People, we doing this, and that's talking about Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson, Patrik Allvin, and this organization that has flipped the script in 2.5 years. Straight up, man. You know what? I went to Starbucks this morning, right? I woke up really early. Yeah, I had to step it up for the people before I made it over to the Chicken Curry Studios at my parents' house, okay? For real. And I was going to read the 4 agreements, finish this book off that's changing my life. I didn't have the time to do so, but you know what else I read? I read the Patrik Allvin Business Tutelage 101 discography autobiography, okay? And I'm highly motivated because that guy, the leader of this city, he's a leader of this city. He's on one, bro. He's on one. And, bro, after reading that, and maybe you got some of that same juice from the Thomas Drance article, bro, we're in good hands, bro. The Stanley Cup is coming to Vancouver.
Hey, let's. I think it's still the video on our homepage from August of 2023 when you and I got drunk off the blue and green, and we're still drunk off the glue. Off the glue. What? Off the blue and green, baby. But if we're going to continue to be drunk off the blue and green, if we're going to continue believing that this team is going to win the Stanley Cup, we're going to need the return of Elias Pettersson. And Patrik Allvin, he alluded to as much in his chat with Ian McIntyre when asked about Elias Pettersson's difficult second half and if he was the X factor for this season. Allvin said, "quote, I definitely need him back to another level, which he's capable of. We all know that. I think he's extremely hungry to show that. He's a proud person, and I'm sure he set individual goals and a mindset at a different level here. I think he's really eager to come back and show everyone that he's capable of playing consistently." And this is really, I don't want to call it a make or break season for Pettersson because the guy's getting paid a lot of money for a long time by your Vancouver Canucks. But there's definitely going to be, there's tentativeness around the fan base already in terms of what kind of player is Elias Pettersson, which to me, I get it, but also seems kind of crazy. This is a guy, again, who has wowed the hockey world on a number of occasions, who has 412 points in his first 407 career games. He arrived with an appearance on Pornhub in his first game. My God, this guy is an incredible hockey player. And, oh, by the way, for the first time in maybe since the Lotto Line days, he's going to have a couple of great wingers alongside him as well. Maybe no offense to Andre Kuzmenko, because that was a pretty good winger for Elias Pettersson, but different dynamic when you could potentially have a skilled guy like a Höglander or a Sprong and a physical guy like Jake DeBrusk. Really excited to see what Pettersson can do this season. And the Canucks are going to need him to be better. Patrik Allvin didn't mince words, and he's absolutely right.
Damn, bro. I can't believe you just brought up Andre Kuzmenko. Trevor, can you do a fact check? Who had more points last year, Andre Kuzmenko or Jake DeBrusk? You know what? Okay, you know what, man? I was thinking about Pettersson a lot today, okay? Because I don't even know the media availability for the players. It's today, 4:00 or something, and I'm curious to see if the Canucks are going to let Pettersson talk to the media straight up. No, I'm not even joking about that. And if you're watching this, Pettersson, just do it. Again, just hammering the cliches, be in front of the cameras, do it for the kids, do it for the young fans, okay? Don't lose to the microphones. Handle the pressure, deal with it. It's Vancouver, and you can do it. Just don't let it affect you. Read the 4 agreements. Don't take it personally. Don't make assumptions, and just do your best. Hey, speaking of that, if he does his best, we talk about Brock Boeser getting 50. That's a lot easier. Pettersson's at his best and playing on the power play with Brock Boeser. You know what I'm saying? Bro, everything changes for the Vancouver Canucks if that guy can connect with JT Miller and form, again, the poor man's version of Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. And you may think that's a disrespectful thing to say, but those two guys are Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky. Bro, we may have the second best 1-2 punch in the league. We haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen these guys down the middle be at their best at the same time. We saw them on a line together do that, but how about, on separate lines? Like that creates a totally different dynamic for this team. And when Allvin talks about him needing that, it's because he sees that and sees it in his mind, sees it in his dream, but wants to see that on the ice. Because culturally speaking, that version of the Vancouver Canucks has not been seen yet. And once it is seen, it's going to be scary for any team in the Western Conference to go through that. For real, Thatcher Demko or not, because that is special. Elias Pettersson is special, and they need this guy being confident, man. And also from the McIntyre piece, it talks about how he came to Vancouver early, obviously for the captain skates, and you want to meet all the new players and, do all those cliche normal things that you got to do when you're making 11.6. But the key thing that I saw in that quote was that he was happy. Have fun again. Have fun playing the game. It's just hockey, baby. Don't take your life so seriously. It's just hockey. You got to be fluid out there. No, straight up, man. Straight up. Like, we could talk about how the city needs it. The Canucks need it. Allvin needs it. Oh, the Canucks can't win a Stanley Cup if Pettersson is not himself. Bro, Pettersson, you love the game of hockey, man. This is your thing. Don't take it so seriously. Have fun, and the sky's the limit still for number 40 for your Vancouver Canucks.
So the guy has been painted in gold before after leading his SHL team as a teenager to a title. This guy has got it in him to be the best. And Kyle, what I kind of want to touch on before we cut to break here is, with all this talk about Pettersson and Boeser, what are the ceilings and the floors for Elias Pettersson and Brock Boeser? And what do you see as their most likely outcomes, statistically or storyline wise this season?
Well, I think for Brock Boeser, again, like it's going to be a big storyline, this whole thing. And, fans and stuff like that are going to be like, oh yeah, the media is making this a big deal about how he's a UFA, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Brock Boeser is going to do that because just like Pettersson last year, who was an RFA at the time, having a really good season, when there's no contract at the end of the season, those things get talked about because there's a bit of a disconnect and you want this guy to stick around for a long time. And that same type of appetite is going to happen for Brock Boeser when he starts off the season with like 17 goals in his first 30 games or 17 goals in his first 25 games. Like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And he's going to ironically earn that type of rhetoric, right? Like, what's this contract going to look like? Can the Canucks get it done? Do they need to get it done? And if they don't get it done, do they got to flip this guy? Which sounds scary. It sounds stupid. It sounds traumatic. It sounds dramatic. But for an organization that has traded prospects and picks after being good for like 30 seconds over the last 2 or 3 years, it wouldn't be the dumbest thing to do for a team that also needs some help on the blue line to like make sure they're recouping assets on the fly too, because this is the long game. We talk about winning the Stanley Cup now, this season. Yeah, great, phenomenal. I believe in that stuff too, but you got to be a bit realistic about it. And if you read in between the lines of everything Allvin has been talking about over the last couple of years, this dude's ruthless. This dude's ruthless. Straight up, if he does not have a contract by the deadline, this whole thing about Boeser being the best rental available, bro, straight up, you could probably get a lot for him. It may happen. That's going to be a big conversation. But the whole Pettersson thing, it's like you talked about the floor, right? I'll talk about the floor for Boeser too. 30 goals. The ceiling is 50. For Pettersson, the floor is 90 points, man. You're getting paid $11.6 million. You had the offseason last year. You did your thing. I think you got to like 89 points. I'm pretty sure he had like 15 points in his last freaking 30 games last year. Bro, you got to step it up. You got to be one of the faces of the NHL because he can be that good when the game is fun again. And, last year, Trevor, we're talking about this guy putting up Kucherov numbers, Matthews numbers. Like, I don't know if we need that realistically in the regular season. I mean, it would be nice. It would be a good way for the fans to be kinder to this guy prior to the playoffs starting. But we need that dominance. We need that Selke two-way force. We need that Barkov light type of guy back in the lineup. And we need this guy smiling, okay? The ceiling for this guy is 100+ points with a lot of smiles.
There we go. Lots of smiles in Vancouver, and hopefully the fans will be smiling because, again, your Vancouver Canucks on paper, legitimate Stanley Cup aspirations and one of the best teams in the NHL.
How about you, though, man? What's the floor and ceiling for you, dude? What's the floor? Like, you were the highest guy on Pettersson last year. What's the floor for Pettersson for you? Realistically, man, it can't be 85 points. We're talking about $11.6 million. Like, let's not pump the brakes so much and just be okay with Pettersson being like a top 30 player, top 20 player. Dude, he can be a top 10 player in this league. He can be a top 7 player in this league.
Yeah, well, honestly, I think the floor is lower than what you're suggesting. I think the floor, we saw it last season. That's the floor. If Pettersson keeps it up, he's a 50, 60-point player. We're talking about one of the worst contracts in the NHL. I don't think that's realistic, but that is the floor because we've seen it. I also think we've seen the floor with Brock Boeser too. He was going through a lot in that 2021-22 campaign, but at even strength, he was basically scoring at a fourth-line rate. So I think we've seen the floor for both players, but the ceiling, I think Boeser could be in the Rocket Richard conversation. Maybe not.
No. Hold up.
You never know. Matthews had a couple slow seasons too. I'm saying in the Rocket Richard conversation. Hey, Sam Reinhart can get there. Brock Boeser can get there. And for Pettersson, it's at 110-point Hart Trophy level. Maybe not winning the Hart, but being in that conversation. That's the ceiling for both players. Both of them can be two of the best players in hockey. And Patrik Allvin, I think he sees that as well. And that's why he's motivating these guys to bring their A game in 2024-25. Kyle, let's bring our A game to wrap up the show on the other side after we shout out our friends over at FanDuel. All right, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel on this program because they are America's #1 sportsbook. Well, FanDuel's got a little something different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is Google account, a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Quickly, in terms of Canucks bets, went over this with the host from Locked On Kings, Locked On Oilers, Locked On Golden Knights on an episode that will be dropping soon. And the over-under for the Canucks points this season, 96.5, which leaves them third in the division. Man, oh man, I got to sneeze. If you think the Canucks are going to hit over 96.5 points, which is basically a wild card team, I would be smashing the over on your Vancouver Canucks. So whether you want to bet on the Canucks, NFL, whatever it is, make sure you go do so on FanDuel. Go visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook.
Oh. People, we back doing this, giving you that Locked On Canucks, okay? Kyle Bhawan and Trevor Beggs, the second best dad in the world, doing our thing. Hey, one love to the Locked On Podcast Network for giving us that culture, right? Telling us, forcing us, straight up, making us sign those papers. You better give it to the people every day. You're Canucks every day, no matter what. And we've been doing that all off season long, and the season is right here, man. It's right here. It's already started. It feels like that. We're going to have the players talk to the media today. I wonder if you're looking forward to that, Trevor, if there's anything that you're like honing in on or you want to hear from these guys. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. And more importantly, like the players at the ice tomorrow. And, we're going to talk about this more tomorrow, but like the experiments that Taka's going to run, the whole embrace the hard thing that he's really honing in on. And like, bro, this guy, embrace the hard. If that's the mantra for the city, baby boom happening here on the West Coast Boss, okay? Straight up. Hey, Trevor, kid number 3 may be coming because you embracing the heart too. You know what I'm saying? All that being said, we're going to talk about Edler, top defenseman all the time. We're going to run through this list really quick. Trevor's got to go. But yeah, are you looking forward to any quotables from like the media availability? Like who are you most interested in hearing from?
Whew, that's a good question. I'm going to say Philip Roenick because he never talks to the media. How about that?
Yeah.
He doesn't say a whole lot, but maybe fresh off a new contract, maybe we're going to get a new and improved Philip Roenick. He's someone I'd have my eye on. Always curious to hear from JT Miller. I think the guy is probably the best quote machine on your Vancouver Canucks. Always has something to say. Busy dad of 3. He's embracing the heart for sure. And then Elias Pettersson, obviously, right? Guy hasn't talked all offseason. Kind of curious where his head's at as well.
Bro, this guy better speak to the media, man. If he ain't speaking to the media or like gives short answers and looks like he could be motivated and smiling and doing all these things, but I think he needs to, again, not have so much attitude. Like that's got to stop, bro. Not that I care or you care. I know like we're past that, but it's that connection to the fans. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, just put it on for them. Don't do it for us. Don't make us happy. Make the fans happy. And who cares about mother effers like us? Like, we're not even real people. We're just on the internet. Speaking of real people, though, Alex Edler, dude, retiring and is going to sign a 1-day contract, and he's going to be celebrated on October 11th. I don't want to hear this whole, like, oh, put this guy in the Ring of Honor. Blah. Dude, can we just accept what he's gotten, and this is like a 1-day contract, and it's going to be nice for him to, be celebrated? That's good enough, okay? I'm not going to use the word mediocre, but, like, there's a different standard, okay? The evolution of the Canucks defenseman and what, like, is considered to be elite and historic is completely changed. Okay, before it was Matthias Olin, Jarkko Lumi, and Alex Edler, and now it's Quinn Hughes. Now there's a Norris in the building. Okay, Alex Edler is getting his due, and Trevor, you know me. You've known me for years and years and years and years and years and years. And let me check again, more years and years and years and years and years. Okay, I can get a little pissed off, a little sensitive. Okay, you know that I could ignore a couple of things. So can you go back in time, because I've seen the highlights over the last 24 hours. And just explain to me how important Alex Edler was to the Vancouver Canucks.
It's interesting because he was important on a couple of different levels. I think first and foremost, he was a part of the best Canucks team in team history, right? And as a guy that they found in the 3rd round of the draft, who ended up cracking the NHL at 20 years old, it was a slam dunk draft selection by Brian Burke at the time. It's not too often you guys see drafted in the 3rd round. That would be like, honestly, it would be like Elias Pettersson cracking the Canucks this season. That would be the comparable for me. Again, really, really tough to do. And Alex Edler did it and parlayed it into an 1,000+ game NHL career, 925 of those games to your Vancouver Canucks. And, at the peak of his powers is when the Canucks were at the peak of their powers too, right?
True.
We made it to the All-Star game in the 2011-2012 season. Physical guy, offensive force, solid defensively, like just a good all-around defenseman. Probably even a bit more of an offensive version of Matthias Olin at his peak, I'd say. And on the flip side, Alex Edler was a stabilizing force in a lot of years where this team was not very good. They were already one of the worst teams in the NHL. Maybe Alex Edler prevented us from getting the number 1 overall pick a couple of seasons. Not that the lottery balls would have bounced our way anyways. But again, really nice guy, consummate professional. And yeah, man, we love our Swedes here in Vancouver, and Alex Edler, you're a big part of that, buddy.
And man, I think when we get closer to the date and there's a lot of media slash, I'm going to use the word propaganda around everything Alex Edler, we're going to hear about how instrumental he was to Quinn Hughes. And that's going to make us feel even better about number 23. And man, like when he broke into the league, and I remember how easy it was for him to be this guy who wasn't supposed to be so good right away. Like, I know Sweden is like a defensive factory to some extent, but considering where he was playing in junior before he got to North America and where he got drafted, it was somewhat of a miracle that this guy became a legitimate number 2/number 3/ really good number 2 defenseman. And again, doing it with ease. And bro, I feel as if I saw articles of this dude being compared to, and this is crazy, but a really poor man's Nicholas Lidstrom. Like I just remember seeing, because again, emotion here, and we've never seen elite defensemen before. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know what that feels like. And here was this guy who was Swedish and doing all these things. And was just so strong on both ends of the rink, who came out of nowhere, and we were just, again, in love with him. And I think, again, this may sound so crazy, but if this guy doesn't go through so many injuries, bro, I wonder if this guy could have been nominated for Norris, considering that he played on good teams. No, real talk, man. Like, he got injured a lot.
Yeah, and that was a big part of it too, for sure. And the fact that he played 900 plus games with the Vancouver Canucks, despite all those injuries, says something about his longevity. And the guy was an absolute warrior, right? Maybe not like Chris Tanev, Sammy Salo recognition of being a warrior, but he was a warrior for the Vancouver Canucks. Now, want to touch on this comment quickly before we get out of here. Vancouver is my life, aka Ryan. Shout out to you, Ryan. One love. I says, why is he called the Eagle? So I was looking this up very quickly here, and it looks like it came from Trevor Linden. There's a quote from an article in the Vancouver Sun in 2008 where Trevor Linden says, quote, I come up with all kinds of stuff to call guys. Edler, Eddie the Eagle. What's an eagle? A big, majestic bird, but he's not a big, majestic bird yet, so he's an eaglet. So it started with Edler the Eaglet, who blossomed into Edler the Eagle. And he's talked more about how he's a baby eaglet because all he does is sleep and eat when he's on the plane. So baby Edler grew up to be one of the best defensemen in Canucks history until the arrival of Quinn Hughes. And hey, maybe Phil Pronik will overtake him at some point here too.
Yeah, that's, again, he has to be that guy. You're playing with Quinn Hughes. You're playing on a stacked team. You're getting paid that much. You got to be that guy. Okay, so I'm going to quickly run through my top 5 defensemen before we get out of here, okay? Boom, bam, in Canucks history. And sorry, Yarke Lume, Jeff Brown, those guys don't make the list because I'm not going to lie to the people. I never watched those guys play. I'm not like most of these dishonest podcasters out here, okay, and reporters. I'm just going to tell you the truth of my version of the truth, okay? I started watching hockey in 2001. So here are my top 5 Canucks defensemen of all time off the dome, okay? For real. Number 5, Alex Edler. I know that's going to piss a lot of people off, but that's just the way it is. Number 5, Alex Edler, okay? Number 4, Sammy Salo. You want to talk about toughness, guy? Bro, blocks a shot with his things down under, you know what I'm saying? And does his thing. And I just loved how underrated Sammy Salo was. It's just a OG. I miss that guy. I really miss Sammy Salo, okay? Number 3, Ed Jovanovski. Swagger. And, you know, going into watching hockey for the first time, it was fun to have that guy on your team. You could see how much he cared about the West Coast bias. Number 2, Matthias Ohlund. For whatever reason, I like the humbleness. I love how strong he was. Again, I'll hone on the humbleness. There was something beautiful about that, and I attached myself to that early on. I don't know how I was like 6 or 7 or 8 years old, but I was like, yo, I like how this guy's so quiet and so good. And number 1, Quinn Hughes. Obvious. Okay? Obvious. Boom, bam. That's my top 5 Canucks defenseman of all time since like 2001.
There you go, buddy. I guess I got to rip through a top 5 quick myself. All right. Number 5, I'm going Ed Jovanovski. So much fun to watch. Number 4, Yarke Lume. Number 3, I'll go Alex Edler. Number 2, Matthias Ohlund. Number 1, Quinn Hughes. Honorable mentions to BX, Sammy Salo, of course. Paul Reinhart, if he was a Canuck for any longer, he would have been up there too because that guy was a great player, but he only spent really 2 seasons in Vancouver. All right. But speaking of short-lived, we got to get out of here, man.
We got to get out of here, bro.
The occasional listeners, the first-time listeners, the new subscribers, and those who joined us on the live show on YouTube, wherever you're listening. Whenever you're listening, we appreciate the hell out of you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. If you like what we're doing, go subscribe or like on YouTube. Follow and leave a 5-star review on the podcast side. And if you're a business or you know a business owner looking for some advertising opportunities, make me your biatch. We can do some ad reads. We got a couple spots available for local sponsors. That's all I got to say. But for now, we got to get out of here. I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Cal Bound. And you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
Hey, one love to Dakota Joshua. Take care. Take your time and go to the doctors, man. Hey, Beggsy, go to the doctor, man.